Hello everyone, it's Bella Malloy here, host of Seek Travel Ride, and welcome back to another midweek mini episode where I share stories from you, our listeners, letting us know all about your bike adventures. This week I have got an awesome story to share with you from New Zealand, and listener Warwick Prewer is going to take us right there. He's going to be sharing a day from his journey bikepacking in the Coromandel region, an absolutely mega part of that beautiful country. And I'm sure it's going to get a few of you dreaming up your own Kiwi adventure. Without any further ado, let's listen to Warwick sharing one day of his trip.
Hi there, I'm Warwick Prewer and I live in Cambridge, New Zealand. And I'm going to tell you about one day in a bikepacking trip I did in the Coromandel March last year. I got the idea from doing this trip actually from one of your podcasters, a girl who came to New Zealand and was bikepacking around New Zealand. And I remember listening to her on Seek Travel Ride, and she really encouraged people just to slow down in the bikepacking and don't think about doing the whole thing all at once. I remember she'd gone to the South Island and wanted to kind of break it up, and so did a bit of bikepacking and got a job and then did some more bikepacking. And at the time, I was thinking about doing a trip in the Coromandel, which can be quite a kind of effort given all the hills there. And after listening to this podcast, I thought, that's a great idea. I should just do a little section of the Coromandel over 3 days, take it easy and have a relaxed weekend. So I found a mate called Ben Colmer. Shout out to Ben Colmer for coming. And got some plans together, sussed it out, booked a campsite and some accommodation, and off we went. And so the day I'm going to share with you is the middle day, Saturday, 9th of March. So big picture, we basically drove and parked to Colville on the west side of the Coromandel, and over 3 days biked around the tip of the Coromandel, this peninsula, right back to our car in Colville. So the middle day, the Saturday, we woke up, we camped the night before at Port Jackson, this beautiful dock campsite. It's a beautiful beach looking kind of north and west. And we'd arrived the night before in the dark. And so I hadn't really kind of, sussed its stuff out and had a chance to look around. So just seeing the beautiful beach there was amazing. And obviously had a swim because it was such a lovely day. And then had our breakfast and got on our bikes. And we decided that we'd bike as much along the coast as possible. The road that we should follow actually goes inland a bit to Fletcher Bay, but we decided we'd follow the coastline. So we biked along the beach, which was great, and then found this track that headed up to the cliffs tops, lugged our bikes up these steps, which, was interesting and showed, whose bike was lighter. We got to the top and just had a beautiful view of Aotea, Great Barrier Island in the north, the kind of the Auckland area on the west. And so walked and biked along the cliff tops, heading east, having beautiful views. It was just a stunning, stunning day. And then got down to Fletcher Bay, where the fun begins. Well, I biked this trip many years ago, about 20 years ago, and remember this section from Fletcher Bay to Stony Bay being pretty tough because it's basically 2 tracks. There's a walking track, a dock walking track, or what dock call a mountain bike track. And I remember doing it many years ago in the wet, and it was just tricky. But today was a beautiful day. It was sunny, clear skies. And so, we were pretty upbeat. And we started following the track. And just before it split, we met a bunch of walkers, I believe it was, coming down. And they looked at us on our bikes and they said, you guys are really brave, Wow, you sure you know what you're doing? We started to wonder, what we were doing actually. And I looked at the sign that said mountain bike track, which is the one we had to go to. And it was steep up this fence line, right up this hill. Unfortunately, we couldn't take the walking track because it was closed, and we knew that. So we stuck with the mountain bike track and pushed our bikes up this hillside. And it was just so steep. I couldn't believe it. I know that day we did about 913 meters of height gain, and I'm pretty sure over half of that was in that kind of 1 hour pushing our bikes and then going down a bit later. So anyway, Ben was kind of questioning my sanity at this stage and the gear we'd brought as well. But we got to the top and just enjoyed the lovely views of Coromandel and the sea and that sort of thing. and biked along this flat section near the top. And then we came to the downhill. And I'd remember the downhill from last time and how steep it was. I think it says on the dock website about, not attempting this when it's wet, but definitely don't do this if it's wet because it's clay and rock and very, very steep with lots of switchbacks. And so doing it in the wet would just be disastrous, even walking in the wet. So anyway, we were brave and it was dry, real good conditions. So, opened our shocks up and loaded my saddle and strapped everything on tight and kind of biked a little bit and then had to walk a little bit because it was too steep and rocky. But we got to a section where we thought, you know what, we can do this. And Ben took the lead and I followed him down. And it was a nail-biting, adrenaline-filled ride right to the bottom. On the corners of the switchbacks along the way, they'd put these kind of speed bumps, out of rocks and mud, clay, to try and channel the water away from the track so it doesn't erode. And so every time we went around a corner, you had to kind of negotiate this bump and hoping that, my bags didn't fall off and that sort of thing because it was going to be hard going back up there. So, yeah, it was such a great fun downhill. Loved it. Loved every minute of it. Got to the bottom, this beautiful stream that we crossed. And we decided that was time for lunch. We kind of pretty much done a good bit of adrenaline and really need to refuel. And it's always interesting what people bring bikepacking. One of us had bought some cheese, a whole block of cheese. So that was a good thing to share and, enjoy. So it wasn't long after this that we biked into Stony Bay, which is on the east coast of the Coromandel, east of the tip of the Coromandel, and had this beautiful beach. There was only probably about 10 other people there. It was just, fantastic. Even on a Saturday, it was just empty. Typical New Zealand beach with flaxes and Nico palms and cabbage trees. And of course, we needed to swim because we were pretty hot and sweaty. So got our togs on, had a swim. It was beautiful. And it must have been about 2:00 in the afternoon. And I booked some accommodation for that night. We thought to ourselves, you know what? We've got so much time. Let's just relax for a bit. And so Ben and I love chess. And so we pulled out our phones and played a very relaxed game of chess on our phone. And it was so much fun just sitting, by the beach in the shade, having this game of chess. And I think we went a bit further biking along Stony Bay to almost to the end of Stony Bay and thought to ourselves, you know what, we'll just have another little rest. So we had a little sleep, I think, actually on the grass there by the beach. It was really delightful. Just took our time. And that's one of the things I love about, bikepacking is you get to set your own pace. You don't have to kind of rush around too much. And if you find something interesting or worth exploring, you can do that. So, yeah, we did that and then ended up biking to our accommodation. And so I booked an eco resort by Port Charles and got this great deal. We had, a cabin to ourselves, 2 single beds, and it's something like $20 each for the night. And at this eco resort was also a restaurant and some hot tubs. So, we had a great time just soaking away those sore muscles in the hot tub and really enjoying dinner at this restaurant and playing a bit of pool. It was just the end to a great day bikepacking, I have to say. So yeah, that was my one day bikepacking in the Coromandel, and it has encouraged me to do quite a few more trips and try and eventually link up lots of different trips in the Coromandel. So yeah, thanks for this chance to share my story.
Warwick, thank you so much for sharing your story with us there. And can I just say, wow, what a journey you had. What an absolute adventure. And listeners, make sure to head over to our Instagram account because Warwick has shared through some absolutely dreamy photos showing his wild camp views there on an absolutely magic area of New Zealand. I got to say, Warwick, I would love to pitch my tent there right where you have as well. And what a day you absolutely had. New Zealand is a country that has my heart. I mean, I actually did get married there for a reason. The natural beauty and landscapes are absolutely to die for. I'm a little bit not so steady on the off-road stuff, but you have piqued my interest there. And I've heard so many great things about bikepacking in New Zealand. So listeners, maybe you're a bit like me and after listening to this episode, you're going to start Googling New Zealand bikepacking adventures as well. Thank you so much, Warwick, for sharing your story. You're an absolute legend. And I hope that there's many more bikepacking trips in your future to come as well. Okay, listeners, now it's time for me to say a big heartfelt thank you to you, my super fans, who are supporting me and the podcast by buying me some virtual coffees. This week, I am saying thank you to Richard Hamilton. Richard, you've bought me a few coffees before and you've said, another great show with David. People like him make the world a better place. Richard, you're talking about our guest, David McCourt. And listeners, I've released 2 episodes now with David sharing his monumental adventure from Melbourne all the way to Cushendall in Northern Ireland. And Richard, I have to agree, I think the world would be a much, much better place with more people like David in it. And I really hope that him sharing the story and people listening to it maybe adds to helping us all become better people as well. Thank you so, so much for supporting me on the podcast once again. You're an absolute legend yourself. Next, I have Lucy. Lucy, you've said, thank you, Bella. Ever since I discovered your podcasts, I've been really enjoying them and I always look forward to the new one. I discovered this wonderful world of bikepacking in 2022 and I have been hooked, or my husband says obsessed, ever since. Well, thank you so much, Lucy, for reaching out and supporting me and the show here on Seek Travel Ride. I am stoked that you have discovered the podcast and that it's helping to keep the fuel and stoke for your passion of bikepacking alive. I must admit, so much of me wants to learn more about your bikepacking adventures and where you've gone to. So get back in touch with me and fill in the gaps and let me know. And once again, thank you for being an absolute legend and supporting me and the show. Listeners, if you would like to buy me some virtual coffees and support me and the work I'm producing here on Seek Travel Ride, you can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Seek Travel Ride. Every coffee helps keep the show on the airwaves, and I truly appreciate all your support. And until the next episode, I'm Bella Malloy. Thanks for listening.